just keep communicating, keep pinging, and don't wait. The words I tell people I hate are "I'm waiting."
Yeah.
Those words are inconsistent with winning with speed.
Yeah.
Do not wait. Communicate. And I tell them, communicate in more than one way.
Welcome to Process Unpacked. Dive into practical insights, expert advice, and real stories from businesses of every size. Join us as we tackle project management challenges like team collaboration and workload management. Let's get started.
Welcome to Process Unpacked, the podcast where we break down project management and workflow challenges to help you work smarter. I'm Amir, and in each episode, we explore world-class solutions to optimize your team's efficiency using Meegle. Today, we're joined by Steve Grubbs, CEO of VictoryXR, a pioneer in immersive education technology. He's got experience founding 5 businesses from scratch. Steve brings unique insights into the delicate balance of introducing strict business processes at the right stage of growth. Too soon, and you risk stifling innovation. Too late, and chaos takes over. In each episode, we'll explore when and how to integrate structure into your business operations without sacrificing agility. Get ready for a deep dive into lessons learned from scaling successful companies. Thanks a lot for joining us. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Process Unpacked by Meegle, where we love talking to business owners, entrepreneurs, project leaders, and learn more about how they run their business, how they manage their projects, and then how everything works behind the scenes. So I'm very honored to have Steve Grubbs here, CEO of VictoryXR, to join me. Steve and I have known each other for quite a while. We've worked directly, we've worked indirectly in a lot of different, times and spaces in the past. And Steve, if you don't mind, tell the audience, tell the Meegle viewers, the Process Unpacked listeners a little bit more about yourself and kind of your origin story.
Yeah. So when I was in my early 20s, I was a politician.
Mm-hmm.
I ran for the Iowa legislature. I was elected 24, 25 and did that for about 6 years. But then I began my entrepreneurial journey. I learned a lot in state government. I worked with business. I worked with government. So that was helpful, extremely helpful. But I started my first company and then my second company, and I've started 5 companies, 2 not successful, but 3 successful. And so I've learned a lot. And, I can remember in high school, I worked at a Chinese restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
which was a little odd, but I did. And I remember a fortune cookie I opened one day that said, "A wise man learns from other men's mistakes." And I thought, my life, I have carried that with me. I learn a lot from my own mistakes,
Right.
but, I mentor a lot of people hoping that they can avoid the many dumb things that I've done on my journey to get from here to here.
That's a great story. I love that. The fortune cookie. I had not known that about you. So that's, we've all probably, I think we've all had some interesting jobs back in high school. So that's, there could be a whole podcast about that. Odd jobs in high school. So tell us a little bit about VictoryXR. Tell us about the business, how it started, what the vision is, what you're working on, because I think for us and the listeners, that will kind of help us set the stage for, how you execute. And the point you just made really quickly in the first few seconds of us talking here about learning from mistakes and those sorts of things. I want to come back to that, but tell us a little bit about VictoryXR.
Yeah. So VictoryXR is the global leader in spatial 3D learning education. We are on over 170 university campuses around the world, over 200 school districts, primarily in the United States, and thousands of homeschool families. And the reason is because the platform allows you to learn in a vast number of areas. You can learn biology. You can be hands-on in a cadaver lab, hold a human brain or a human heart in your hand. Chemistry, you can travel the world on history field trips, that type of thing. So
Right.
It's a powerful platform, and VXR Labs is the VR portion of it, but we've also integrated AI into it. And so our business model is a subscription model for, either a school, a site license, or students, whatever the case might be. And it has been 8 years. We launched in 2016. 8 years of pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yep.
As you know,
Yeah.
with the places that you've worked, it's one of those deals where it's been an industry that has been slow to come together.
Yeah.
but it's coming together nonetheless.
It is. The momentum is building.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's VictoryXR. And I think our move into spatial 3D AI, conversational AI avatars that tutor and teach and train, that will be a big growth area for us over the next 12 to 24 months.
So I know AI is a big topic for everyone. We're at CES here this week. We're speaking here from the 58th floor at the Wynn Hotel. Pretty nice view. But, tell me about, what are your thoughts on kind of how AI is integrating even into businesses, and maybe even wrap that into how small businesses are leveraging AI like yourself?
Yeah. So in my lifetime, I've had the good fortune, or in some cases, bad fortune, to see major tech changes that just completely disrupt the entire economy. Early on, it was the microchip, the advent then of personal computers.
Right.
Then you had the internet. 95 to 99 was just an extremely disruptive time.
Yeah.
So many businesses went out of business.
Right.
And so many new ones came to be. Today with AI, we are seeing a similar revolution. And really the combination of robotics and AI and immersive, meaning glasses or headsets.
Yep.
The combination of those three will disrupt every single business. I can't think of a single one that it won't impact. And because of that, things like from my home state of Iowa, you'll no longer have farmers driving tractors. I mean, they're almost out of the tractors now with GPS and robotics, but with AI, that will pretty much seal the deal. So even at a level that people might think is the most hands-on, it will impact it. And so to the extent that one wants to succeed in this new AI world, we have to A, understand it, B, look at ways to change it to work in a particular industry, and then C, I think, understand that in many cases you may work fewer hours but make more money.
Right. Who doesn't want that?
Well, yeah. I don't know that I want that. I like working a lot of hours, but I know I'm the outlier there. So,
yep. Well, I mean, I know that about you. I think everyone who knows you, Steve, knows you're always working hard around the clock. You got a lot of different things always in motion. So talk to me a little bit about just like as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a CEO, like how do you manage and make sure like the next, chapter of VictoryXR, recording a 3D travel video that you have for schools, like how do you manage that project? Really just kind of at a tactical, like project level. How is that visualized? How is that managed for you? And is it something that you're integrating a lot of tech and tools to kind of track and execute on? Or is there maybe kind of like just a way that you've always done it that works for you?
Yeah. So you have to look at project management from the stage of a business. I start businesses from scratch, from ground zero. And really you want to avoid putting in place systems until you actually need them, because systems are going to add a layer of complexity.
Yeah.
There's a point when those systems save you lots of time and money.
Right.
But when you're a small 3 to 10 person team, you don't need a lot of systems. You're talking to pretty much everybody every day, but then slowly you start to layer in systems. Accounting is usually first. You got to keep track of where the money's coming in, who's supposed to pay you, how it's being collected, and who's getting paid.
Right.
And so, most small businesses will look at QuickBooks, but then you start to get into more complex projects. Now, instead of having 1 or 2 people working on a project, you might have 5 to 10 people working on a project, all the way from, managing the product and interfacing with the client to, for us, modeling an object or a location, and then the coders putting it all together. And then again, back to the manager who's working with, and then it goes to QA, but there's a lot of pieces. So how do you manage that? And so at some point, then you choose a project management tool.
Right.
And Fortunately, I don't work with that project management tool. I got
Right.
people who do.
Right.
But I think the key, there's a lot of good project management tools out there.
Right. Yeah.
And to me, the key with finding a good one is, hey, was it developed by people in your industry?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the be all and end all,
Right.
but it really helps if people that do what you do developed that platform.
Right.
Second, what is the cost? There's a vast difference in cost in these sorts of platforms.
Very true.
And you see that a lot of times the efficacy and the power of the platform is not correlational to cost. But then third, and the most important to me, is you have to have the right type of person who's managing that software.
Right.
And, this was a lesson I had to learn. I just thought you could assign anybody to it because I was young and dumb. And now I know there's a specific type of person. There's a profile of a person who's well organized,
Right.
detail oriented. Their mind it thinks in a linear way. They're usually not the creatives.
Right.
The mind of the creative is sort of going all over.
Right.
It's usually the linear person on your team, but also a person who is good at working with people.
Yeah.
So, took me a long time to find the right person on our team for that.
Mm-hmm.
We bumbled along and did fine, but I've got a really great individual now who just keeps it all together. The trains don't just run on time, but with the right person and the right software, they run ahead of schedule.
That's a good point. And thank you for sharing that. So I'm curious, tied to this, right? And I think keeping like to the comment you just made about trains, not just running on schedule, but running ahead of schedule. In many ways, I think viewing data and understanding as a business owner, like, what are the opportunities? What are the risks in the projects that we're working on? Is there a way that you guys leverage data right now, or your team members are leveraging data right now? Because I know obviously you're at the forefront. You can't do everything as the business leader. You're out there promoting and closing deals and scaling just the visibility for VictoryXR. But how important is data for you guys as you're visualizing it, and how important is it in decision-making process for VictoryXR?
Yeah. So obviously, and any company that exists in the modern environment has to have data integrated into their systems and then into their decision-making. The easiest example is with your accounting system.
Mm-hmm.
You need lots of data, and then your marketing, you need to understand, in our space, we have hundreds of different experiences, and we want to bring people in to look at our overall subscription based on the experience that piques the most interest. And right now, frog dissection of all things, people, we get so many landing page views due to we have a free frog dissection.
Right.
And then, at the subscription level, they go to fetal pigs and cats and squids and all those sorts of things. But the data tells us that we want to dangle the frog dissection out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the entry.
Yeah, that's the entry point.
Right, exactly. So that's marketing. But in project management specifically, what I coach my management team on is this very simple notion, but learning this when you are managing people is extremely important. And it goes like this: that which is measured receives the focus. That which is measured receives the focus. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, we all know that. But it's amazing how many people aren't measuring the right things, because if you measure the wrong things, then your focus is not on the thing that will most likely to propel growth.
Right.
So we have to measure things like how many hours are going into a particular, not just a project, but tasks within the project. So for example, we build metaversities, which are essentially digital twins of a campus.
Right.
And so you initially have the structure, and then you, in most cases, will build a simulator to put inside that structure and other things. And so for us, there's modeling, and we know that different modelers are going to work at different paces.
Right.
And it's very hard to compare apples to apples, but you have to do it. Then it moves to the coders. And some coders get caught up in, they let perfect be the enemy of good.
Mm.
And most of the time you need to launch a project at good,
Right.
then figure out your path to perfect. So if you measure the right things, you're going to focus on the right things. And so that's the data that we look at as we input it into our project management systems.
That's all great points, Steve. So, and I think your point about striving for perfection and missing out on, the good, right? What did you say?
Don't let good be the enemy. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because as a startup owner, as an entrepreneur, the goal is to continue to grow and progress. If you're spending all this time, obviously I don't need to tell you this, but if you're spending all this time trying to perfect something, you're missing out on opportunities, right?
Well, the other issue is speed.
Yeah.
So, if you stop and think about it, if you're Google or you're Meta or Microsoft, you're one of the largest companies in the world.
Right.
The advantage that you have is that you have almost unlimited resources.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have 100 people working on a project that we might have one person working on.
Right.
So we can't beat the biggest companies in the world. If we don't actually compete with any of those companies, but bigger companies than us, we can't compete with them on human resources, financial resources.
Mm-hmm.
But where we can compete is speed.
Right.
Startups have to be fast. And,
Yep.
and I think you and I have worked together long
Yep.
enough to know that there are very few people that are faster than us.
Yep.
When we make a marketing video, it's usually 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
When we work with large companies, and you know this, it's usually 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that 24 to 48 hours is a powerful tool in winning a marketplace, especially because markets are moving faster and
Yeah.
faster. So
Speed is your advantage. That's a great point to keep hammering home on. I think speed is one of the key advantages an SMB, a startup, has over larger organizations. And I think in some ways, bringing that back to like the tools that you're leveraging and, as your business evolves, being like in a large organization, for them to change what platform they're using, maybe for whether it's projects, for communication, for HR, whatever, that's going to take a lot of time to review and make those decisions and evaluate. For a business like yourself, how do you evolve like the tech that you're using, right? The resources, the stack, all those sorts of things that your team is using. And are you leading some of those decisions, or are people bringing those recommendations to you, or is it kind of a mix?
well, it's a mix. I lead a lot of those. If we're making any tech change,
Mhm.
I will almost always involve myself in that decision.
Mhm.
And that's because, I have 25 years of experience looking at tech changes. And, for example, you look at the guy who created Slack.
Yes. Yeah.
He created a great game, but he built it on Flash.
Hmm.
And those of us, many people may not remember Flash, but it was the way
Yeah.
that a lot of animated games were built.
Yeah.
And then Steve Jobs decided Flash would not be a part of Apple,
Right.
iPhone, any of that.
And that was a big hit. Like it was a death blow almost to Flash, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah.
Well, not only to Flash, but to all the companies who built on it, because
Yeah.
if you couldn't go mobile,
Yeah.
you couldn't go. And
Yeah.
so having seen so much of this, I don't always make the right decision, but I'm frequently more capable of guiding us in the right direction.
Right.
And overspending on tech and tech consultants.
Right.
That's an issue that, if you're a big company, you don't care if you overspend on tech consultants.
Right.
I mean, maybe you should,
Yeah.
maybe you do, but it's less impactful. If you're a small company and you invest a lot in a tech consultant, then that's a real challenge. And frequently changes in tech come along with a consultant. So you have to
Right.
be very careful with that. The one last point, I know
Sure.
I'm going all along
No,
here, but
not at all.
the big issue that you run into is you cannot change very easily once you adopt a new technology.
Mhm.
So one of the smart things that Microsoft did was when we were first switching to cloud services, they offered us like 2 free years of cloud service. We're a small company. We took it. We don't have any reason to switch away from Microsoft Azure.
Yeah.
But we've been pitched by Google and Amazon.
Right.
And I just, out of curiosity, before I even got a quote, I looked at what it would take to switch from Azure to Google or Amazon. And it's a lot. It's more work than we want to undertake. Now, if there were a huge price difference, we might do it.
Right.
But, it's not something we're going to do very easily. So that decision that you make, you're frequently stuck with it unless you're in a life and death situation for the company.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I think the cost of adopting new tech for small businesses, for startups, can be risky. And so, again, I like to mention this. I don't try to make these podcasts a big commercial for Meegle, but one of the things I'm really proud of that we're doing with Meegle is we give a lot of access to our platform for free, right? So we want people to be able to get in there and engage and use the tool and manage projects and visualize their workflows. And if and when they find that it's the tool for them to help them grow their business and help them scale their projects, then there's features and functionalities they can add for various price points. But it's important to enable access to this tech, because we believe it can help people really improve what they're doing today.
Is there a way that Meegle differentiates itself from all the other project management tools out there?
You're the first person to ask me a question on this podcast. So thanks, Steve. No, that's a great point. So absolutely, Meagle's core focus, I'd say core features, projects and workflow visualization is really a standout feature for Meegle. Being able to actually build your workflow and see how those different nodes interact both within this project and other external projects, I think is really unique. And I can pitch it here and kind of use my hands to draw it up in the air, but until people actually get in there and try it, then you really see that wow factor. The data and the reporting, I think, is also really critical. And I touched on this really briefly earlier on in our conversation, was being able to, okay, you have different projects. Now, what is that telling me, right? Because maybe you're a business owner of a 5-person team, or you're an executive of a 500 or 5,000 person team. There's always different projects going on that are time sensitive and business critical. Well, how does that then feed back into where our business is going, where we're headed? Are there any risks from a tech, from a competitive, from a financial standpoint, from a marketing standpoint? What are these green flags or red flags? And so the data and the snapshots and the dashboards are really key. And then the other thing, quite honestly, that I love about Meegle is it's very much an open API platform. So you mentioned Slack. Meegle works great with Slack. It works really well with a lot of different tools. And I think that's just a core belief as a company, and this, of our greater, kind of larger organization, is really very much an open, collaborative platform. We're not building something that will just function in a silo. It can, if you just want to use Meegle as a standalone tool and nothing else, works great. But most companies are using MS Project, and they're using Slack, and they're using, all these other different types of tools, and, Zapier, all these different things. And Meegle works really, really well with them. So.
And I assume it's mobile.
Yep.
Mobile.
Exactly. You can use it on your desktop. You can use it on a laptop, tablet, phone, and all of that. So
does it have a freemium business model?
It is. So that's what I was alluding to, is actually, the ability to get in and use a majority of the features for free is really critical. And one of the things that I like to touch on, whether it's on LinkedIn or in this podcast, is there's no risk. You can just get in and try, jump in. You can enter your corporate email, your Gmail, whatever that may be, and just get in and start tinkering around with it. That's what I always recommend to people. Like, I can tell you about Meegle, but until you go in and just log in and 10, 15 seconds, start to create a project, manage these things, and see how it works for you.
What is it? One of those tools. So for example, with Slack, Slack was built as an internal tool for this game development company that built on Flash.
Yeah.
And then, they're out of money. Their game has no runway because Flash is not the future. Yeah. And they go to their investor and say, we don't quite know where we're going, but one thing we could do is to take our project management tool that we built internally and offer it publicly.
Right.
And so they did. And of course, we all know the rest of the story. Slack exploded.
It exploded. That's a great point. So actually, That's spot on with kind of the origin of Meagle. Meagle's been around actually for about 3+ years now as an internal tool in our company. People love it. They put it through its paces. They've used it for easy projects, complex projects, and have seen, we saw how well it worked internally that we thought, hey, this could be something really beneficial for others. And so we've spun it off into its own platform for the masses, and it's being used across, Asia, Europe, North America, Latin America. We've got, growing business here in the US and Canada. And that's part of why we're doing this podcast series. To learn from business owners, entrepreneurs, everyone large and small, like how they have them unpack their process, hence the name. Like, what is your process? Unpack that for us so people can learn. But it also helps kind of, get more people learning about and hearing about Meagle, because we think it's a really impressive platform.
And it's a ByteDance product.
It is. Yep.
So it should work well for remote international teams.
It does.
Different languages.
Exactly. So there's multiple languages to Meagle, and it's growing. Much like anything else, we have some really cool AI features that we're working on, rolling out in the coming months. And it's a really impressive platform. And I think, for anyone large and small, managing projects, managing workflows, needing something that works really well with other platforms, Meagle is a phenomenal tool. And again, it's no cost to get it and get started.
Yeah. The AI in project tools like that can be very powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're taking your AI, but I will tell you what I think it needs to be.
Yeah, please.
Not that I need to tell ByteDance anything, but I keep all these legacy spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to integrate them into a Google tool that one of my buddies from Google is telling me about, where I can take all of my health data that I track, all of my blood labs. And, I order my own blood labs. I don't wait for my doctor to do it. I put in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But when I need to understand something about it, I have to open up the spreadsheet and I got to dig in to see my trends on, blood glucose levels or cholesterol levels, all of that sort of thing. But with this Google tool, instead, I can just ask it, chart out for me my blood glucose changes over the last 3 years or whatever. I can ask it questions.
Yeah.
It understands the spreadsheet and it provides data back to me. And so I don't have to go in necessarily and dig in. I can just quickly ask a question. And in a project management tool, you would want the same thing. I don't, as the CEO, I don't want to have to call my guy and say, hey, I just want to go, I want to type in, tell me what the update is on the University of Leeds Metaversity project. And I want it to summarize. And are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule? What's taking longer than planned, et cetera. And that would be an extremely powerful tool to integrate into project management.
I agree with you. It's a little early for me to share some of the new features that we're rolling out this year, but I think when you are managing a business, you're managing a project in a platform like Meagle, and you have this growing mountain of data and information, AI can be a really powerful way for you to sift through that and ask it what you want to see and have it pull together that information for you. And I think that just enables more intelligence, faster decision making, and probably, avoiding, like you talked about at the beginning, making some mistakes,
Yeah.
So talk to me, Steve, you kind of mentioned, and then this stuck with me at the beginning of the conversation. You were talking about how you've learned from other people's mistakes. It's what the fortune cookie told you back in high school. Are there any, kind of top of mind, maybe stories of, what is a mistake I witnessed or I experienced or I was a part of in business that you learned from?
It's a process. So for example, two good ideas if you're a business owner or work in a business: subscribe in Reddit or Instagram or a tool like that to Entrepreneurial or whatever your industry is, those feeds. And, one of the, I was really undecided on this whole concept. And then I read a book from Reed Hastings, but just this morning I saw him say this little clip in a 2-minute video clip on Reddit. And, we started our business back in 1999, VictoryXR.com. And, we hired friends early on. And the whole thing back in the day was, oh, our business is a family.
Right.
But then I read this book from Reed Hastings. It says you're silly if you think your business is like a family, because if your sister wasn't living up to what she needed to live up to, would you fire her? Would you lay her off?
Right. Right.
No, you wouldn't. But if an employee is,
Right.
they're going to get fired. They're going to get laid off.
Sure.
You're not going to treat your employees like you would your family. And I said,
Fair point.
oh, that makes a lot of sense. He says, instead, think of it like a team. And this was a lesson they had to learn. And better for me to listen to Reed Hastings. And his whole point is, look, if you are the New Orleans Saints, you are very close friends when you're on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But every single day you are fighting for your position. You're working for operational excellence.
Right.
And after a while, Drew Brees knows exactly where Michael Thomas is when he's throwing that pass.
Right.
Knows exactly where it's going to be, and they have operational excellence. But at some point, Drew Brees was never fired or laid off because he had the luxury of retiring, but that's not the case with most pro athletes.
Right.
Most pro athletes at some point are cut. And so, it may be the same in your business. And that's an example of, I read a lot of books. I have a lot of social feeds that just provide me little bits of information. Elon Musk is very generous about telling, how he views the growth of businesses.
Right.
And whether people like him or not, you have to respect the knowledge he imparts on business growth. And same with so many of these, Steve Jobs recorded a lot of those things. So to the extent that we can learn from those who succeed and not rely on having to learn all of those mistakes ourselves, very valuable.
That makes sense. That's great. That's great advice. And I think, the knowledge you can gain from just your immediate social circles, professional circles, and expanding beyond that, you learn a lot about what's working. And even, for us, I think we're constantly asking for feedback. What is, the platform working? How is it working for you? What isn't? What could be done better? I think that's how any company can grow and succeed there. How do you are out there working with schools, with, corporations, you're deploying content, you're deploying, bundles with headsets, all this sort of stuff. How are you maintaining your lines of communication? How are you maintaining schedules? How are you maintaining, just kind of the project lifecycle externally? We talked a little bit about internally, but externally, how are you ensuring those things happen in a timely manner? Because they're different, right? Schools, we both know, we've worked with educational institutions for many years. The way they communicate, the way they make decisions is very different than how a Fortune 1000 company may do that sort of stuff. And what are your ways of communicating and managing those cycles?
Yeah. So I don't know that we have a great external communication system. And I don't know that that's because we are making the wrong decision. It's primarily because we communicate with our end user, our customer or client, in their preferred method. So in education, it's mostly email.
Right.
If they're willing to jump onto a Slack channel,
right,
we would be happy to do that. So that's an option.
Right.
But the folks we work with in education, that's just not their life.
Right.
Their life is email.
Yeah.
But I coach my management team all the time to meet people where they are. So there are certain people that I communicate with via text.
Right.
I love texting. There are others that we just get them into a Slack channel, but most are email still. And email is a terribly inefficient, risky form of communication.
Yeah, it's a great point.
But here's the other thing that I coach on external communication. The natural inclination of 99% of your employees is to communicate and then to wait for a response back.
Yeah.
For whatever the reason, employees always assume that the end recipient received that email.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because we know that, even if it didn't get caught by the spam filter.
Right.
They just might not have seen it.
We always assume our email is the most important one in that person's inbox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I train people, be the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Ping, ping, ping. They say, I don't want to upset them. Don't worry about that. If they get upset, it's not going to be a deal breaker.
Right.
Just keep communicating, keep pinging, and don't wait. The words I tell people I hate are "I'm waiting."
Yeah.
Those words are inconsistent with winning with speed.
Yeah.
Do not wait. Communicate. And I tell them, communicate in more than one way.
Right.
So, for example, as you know, I will communicate via email, and then I will go to LinkedIn. So here's my best example there. I live part-time in Austin, Texas, and we have Waymo there. Waymo's in 3 cities, San Francisco, Phoenix, and Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I see all these driverless cars, and I just thought, I want to try out a Waymo.
Yeah.
So I went to LinkedIn. First, I went to Google. I looked up who the CEO was. I went to LinkedIn. I went and I found the CEO. I connected, and I said, look, I've got 18,000 followers on LinkedIn. If you can get me an early pass into Waymo, I will share all of this information with those who follow. And within an hour, I got a code. And I'm not saying that everybody who tries this will get a code, but I did. And
I saw your post about Waymo, and it was actually funny because I was in Phoenix, and the day before we had seen, and I had seen one in San Francisco, but my kids saw one drive by in Phoenix, and they were just like mesmerized. They were like, oh my gosh, look, it's a car without a driver. We want to try it. They're like, how do we try it? And I was like, actually, I don't have the app on my phone. So I literally was like, okay, let me download the app, figure out the process to get an account set up.
And were you able to use it?
I didn't try yet. No, I haven't tried yet, but I wanted to get the app downloaded so that I remember next time I'm in the Waymo market to try it. Cause I'm always in Ubers. And
so you can't do that in Austin yet.
Okay.
But I hear in Phoenix that they are out of beta and into actual consumer use.
Because I saw a few driving around Phoenix.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the real question, there's a lot driving around Austin.
Yeah.
It's just only early access.
Got it.
Beta testers get into them. But supposedly Austin goes live this month. I'll see when I get back next week.
That's great. Super exciting. Innovation at its finest, right?
Yes.
Well, great. So listen, Steve, how can our followers follow you? How can they find you? How can they find out more about VictoryXR? How can they find out more about Steve Grubbs?
Yeah. So the best way to follow my path, our path, is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Steve Grubbs, CEO, VictoryXR. I'm very responsive. If you mention the Meegle podcast, I will accept your connection. I don't accept most connections because most of them are either insurance people, wealth managers, lead generation.
You're not getting the franchise opportunities ones because I get those about once a week. So.
Like 5 times a day, I get these lead generation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so mention this, I'll accept, and then it's easy to communicate with me. Otherwise, steve@victoryxr.com.
That's great. Steve@victoryxr.com. So Steve, thank you very much. Again, we've known each other, worked with each other for quite a while. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on our podcast. And you've got vast experience and knowledge and success that I think a lot of our listeners can learn from. And hopefully they'll connect with you and follow you and learn more about your ventures in tech and just, everything, all the knowledge you have to share. So thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
I'm looking forward to following your journey and Meagle's journey.
Thank you very much. And so with that said, thank you everyone for joining today. This is Process Unpacked, brought to you by Meegle. And what is Meegle, you ask? It's a project management and workflow visualization tool used by hundreds of thousands of people around the globe. You can give it a try at Meegle.com. You can get started on a free trial and jump in and give it a whirl. I think you'll find it to be a very powerful tool for helping your business and your projects grow. As we talked about here today, it works phenomenally with external applications, and give it a try. Reach out if you have any questions. And again, Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for tuning in to Process Unpacked. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts or start a free trial of Meegle at www.meegle.com.